Hey everyone, it's Amarachi here with the Playing with Portals YouTube channel. Today I am outside, so I wanted to use my headphones so that you couldn't really hear any of the outside noise. For today's video, I wanted to talk about sleep and how to properly prepare for sleep. I've talked about this a little bit before, but I wanted to make a video kind of in more depth about what exactly that means. So, sleep obviously is something that we all need to do in order to function, right? Sleep is how we get the energy to recharge for the day. It's where we process, it's where we detox. So, it's a really, honestly, a really beautiful thing. And from a spiritual perspective, with sleep, you actually do enter a different realm, right? That's how you're able to dream. That's where people say they're able to get, maybe messages in dreams, or they see very vivid things in their dreams, or they feel their emotions more strongly in their dreams, right? Because we are essentially entering a different realm. Now, with sleep, a lot of times we think about it as an action. I'm going to go to sleep, I'm going to go to bed, I'm going to head to bed. And that's great, that's what it is. But sleep is not just the action of itself of lying down. Sleep is also a process, right? And what I've learned about myself in these past 2 to 3 years is that you have to invest in the process of sleep in order to get good quality sleep. In addition to sleeping at a good time, in addition to making sure you're getting enough sleep, you want to do what you can to invest in the process of sleep. Another reason I'm making this video is also as a reminder to myself that I have to do a better job of investing in my own sleep, right? So we're going to kind of walk through this together. We're going to do it all together. But I think this will be good. And let's go ahead and dive in. So when I say prepare for sleep, I mean there are things that we should be doing or we can do to get ourselves in the optimal state. The optimal state, in my opinion, is when you're calmest, right? You're not going to bed stressed. You're not going to bed angry. You're not going to bed sad necessarily. You're doing what you can to lift off the heaviness that you feel from the day. So I've kind of compiled a few things that work for me in order to sleep more efficiently, but everybody's different. So you kind of collect your own, you make your own toolkit of what works. The first thing I would do is I shut off as many electronics as I can, right? So I do like to play jazz and things like that in the background, but I'm severely limiting my social media intake when I am about to go to bed, right? That's at least ideally, right? The reason I do this is because with social media, you're intaking a lot. You're intaking so many things, a lot of opinions and thoughts that aren't even yours, right? So that can even trigger more stress because I sometimes I've gone to bed. I'm about to go to bed. I say, oh, let me just watch a few TikToks before I go to bed. And something very jarring comes on. And then I'm like, wow, that was such a mood killer. You understand? So that's when I'm like, it's good to separate that out. Now, on the flip side, sometimes watching something before bed can be beneficial. So if I'm like, I want to become more financially disciplined, watching financially videos on finance actually helps me, right? It's something positive, it's something goal oriented, it's something that motivates me to get my budget in order, right? So on the counter side, it can be helpful. So if you are going to sleep better, I would either say, one, kind of take out the social media and take out the things you're consuming, or two, make sure what you're consuming before bed is something positive. Another caveat to this is, for example, if you're somebody who struggles with depression, or you're a lot of your very negative thoughts kind of come right before bed, watching something funny, watching a comedy, listening to comedy before bed can actually be healing, right? So the key is, one, finding what works for you, but making sure what you're consuming before you head to bed is something that's actually enriching you. Okay, so that is the first thing that I would do, or I would do to set the tone and set the mood, right? Is okay, I'm now shifting into this environment where I want to sleep well. So what can I do? What can I take out? What can I take in? So think about that. So with social media, that's probably the most obvious one to me is, okay, the content I'm consuming. What am I consuming before I go to bed, right? So that is the first thing when we talk about the process of sleep. Another thing that I like to do is I like to stretch before bed. with the culture, like I'm sitting now, right? We sit a lot. We're very sedentary, and what that does is it stiffens us up. Our joints and our muscles don't work the way that they should. So as a result, before you go to bed, you're probably very tense, and you might even have tension you're not even fully aware of because you're so used to walking around feeling tense, right? So I always stretch before bed, even if it's just doing a simple toe touch for 10 seconds. I feel so much lighter because I've alleviated the tension in my body. So that's something I recommend for the process of sleep. So in addition to, of course, brushing your teeth and showering, all of that stuff, add in a couple stretches. Stretch your body, do some deep breaths, and actually get your physical self in a calmer state. That's something easy that you can do, right? Kind of going back to the social media and setting the tone, setting some sort of like background music or background scent even. Back in the day, I used to actually, I say back in the day like it was so long ago, but I used to actually take lavender oil or sweet orange oil, and I would put some that oil in a diffuser, and I would let that scent diffuse, right? So that calms me down as well. So once again, I'm preparing my physical environment for the sleep that's about to take place. So I would recommend using a diffuser or setting some nice background music to get yourself in a calmer state, right? So that is what you can do in terms of, I guess, setting the scene, right? And then the stretching, I kind of jumped a little bit. Stretching should come after, but once again, you find your routine, you find the order that works for you, but that's something you can incorporate. Now, once I've set the tone or set the environment for the sleep to take place, that's when you start doing activities. So I mentioned stretching, that's one thing. Another thing is coloring before bed. Coloring before bed has been really relaxing for me. I feel like a little kid again. There Crayola actually has coloring books for adults, and you can even get a kid one if you want. I feel like at this point, we're all big kids, right? So what you can do with that is it allows for you to relax because you're doing something more soothing, more creative, and a lot of times it's fun, right? It's fun to color, it's fun to do different shapes and sizes, different colors and different patterns, and kind of let your creative mind have a little fun before you go to bed. And once again, with the background music and the background scent, it becomes a pretty relaxing activity for you, right? And pretty fun. So coloring is another activity that you can add in. In addition to coloring before bed, I also mentioned deep breaths along with the stretching, so you can do that as well. Reading and journaling is another activity that I think is really good to help you prepare for sleep. Reading is good because it allows your mind to kind of to process things in a different way, right? Take your mind off of maybe what's currently going on in your life and critically engage with yourself in a way that maybe you're not able to, right? Throughout the day. When you're at work, I highly doubt the skill set you're using or the tools you need to use at work are allowing you to fully decompress in the way maybe reading a book is. So reading is a really great thing for that. Now, the caveat with reading is also depends, similar to the content you're listening to, it also depends on what the book you're reading. So I've had some really heavy books. One moment, there's some noise. So, for example, when I was reading Parable of the Sower, that is a very heavy book. I could not read that before bed because I would go to bed like, this is crazy, right? So what I did in that case is that was my daytime book, and then I had a funny, like, rom-com novel that I would read right before bed that would put me on my toes and kind of have me like, oh my God, what's going to happen next with, Brenda and John, is he gonna propose, right? Like that kind of stuff to me is really fun, really relaxing, and puts me in a better mood. So with books, also caveat, with the material, make sure it's material that will put you in a better mood, right? So if it's something heavy and dark, maybe not the best thing to read before bed. But at the same time, when I was a kid, I used to read the Hunger Games before bed. So I don't know how that worked. But as I get older, I realize that my mind, I guess, is a little more sensitive. So I cannot read about Katniss Everdeen, assassinating people. Taking people out, I can't read about that before bed now. So I have a daytime book and a nighttime book, and my nighttime book is catered to kind of making things a little more fun before I go to bed. I also mentioned journaling. Journaling is great the right way, right? You can journal and be negative, or you can journal and be positive. For nighttime journaling, I think it's good if you're somebody who maybe you trends towards the negative. I would recommend maybe getting some nighttime prompts that are, and maybe I can even create some and I can send it off to you guys, but some nighttime prompts that are geared towards more positive thinking, or not even positive, just things that maybe aren't so heavy, you know. And it can be fun prompts as well. But the thing about writing is writing is a great way to relieve stress and kind of get your ideas and your mentality straight. Because, you know, I was talking to one of my relatives the other day. They're like, oh, you know, I just kind of keep it all up in my head. And I'm like, but you're scattered. And you even told me you're scattered. So how's that working for you, right? So sometimes it's good to write things down. It's good to articulate your thoughts in a different medium. And you'll be surprised at even maybe these thoughts that you thought you didn't even know you were having, right? Or anxieties, things like that you're having. So writing is good for that. But before you go to bed, you can utilize that tool to help your sleep be calmer, right? But you want to make sure like it's not you delving into despair and like, oh my God, my life is terrible and awful. You know, you don't want to have that heaviness before you go to bed. So in that case, you know, you want to kind of you want to be careful with that, but writing is another thing that can work. What I do also, another tip for writing is what I'll do is I'll write down my positive accomplishments for the day or for the week, right? So if it's a Monday, I got up on time. I woke up with the sun. I took a morning walk. I stretched. I did a little dance in the morning. At work, my coworker said something that annoyed me, and instead of respond back snarkily, I took a deep breath and responded more professionally. Like, those are the things that you can write down, and then you're like, hey, you know, I'm actually not doing as bad as I think, or I'm growing in this way, or I'm capable of being better than I thought I was, right? These are things that you can do and journal, right? And that's another great thing about journaling, is it helps you put things in perspective when you write things down, versus kind of leaning on one side of the spectrum, thinking everything's all great or everything's all bad. Kind of give yourself this playground where you can kind of see everything and go from there. So that's why I really enjoy journaling before bed, particularly my positive accomplishments. And then for me, I also do, what I've started doing now is I'll handwrite a lot of my essays and pieces, and then I'll go ahead and transcribe them and upload them digitally. So doing that before bed is really, really awesome for me. And last but not least is praying before bed. I am a huge proponent of prayer. I think, or not I think, but I know prayer changes things. Prayer shifts things. And prayers are being heard in realms far beyond your imagination. Nighttime prayers, I use that to, one, be thankful for the day that I had, even if it was kind of a rough day. I'm thankful for the things that I can be thankful for. And then, you know, I use it as a time to kind of be vulnerable about what I'm dealing with. And then I ask for, no matter what I'm dealing with, for guidance through it. And then I ask for protection from things that maybe I don't really see and realize, even if there are behaviors or attitudes that I have that are not beneficial. Protection in that regard as well. Protection in that regard as well. And then, you know, you ask God's help, your angels' help, and then you kind of use that to seal everything that you've been dealing with. So that's a really important thing to do before you sleep, and that's something I always recommend. And in addition to the writing, you can kind of make it a combined activity where you sculpt your own personalized prayers, right? Where you write your own prayers before bed that are tailored to you, and you can say those because it's tailored to you and your situation. So these are all just suggestions on how to kind of make sleep more optimal for you. The overall takeaway, our goal is to sleep better, and one of the best ways to do that is to see sleep as a process, as a series of steps preceding the actual action of sleeping, so that you can wake up feeling better, right? You can wake up feeling restored. There are times where I've gone to bed very late, but because I said, you know what, I'm gonna write before bed, I'm gonna color before bed, I'm gonna read like 5 pages before I fall asleep, I woke up feeling more refreshed than times when I went to bed super early, because I went to bed early, really rushed, like, oh, I want to go to bed at 10:30, rush. And it's like, but I didn't allow for that process to take place. You understand? So once again, everybody's different. Everyone has their own ways of doing things. But I do believe that it would behoove a lot of us to take an extra step in our sleep journey, so that we can wake up and really reap the full benefits of sleep. All right, so thanks so much for watching. Once again, this is the Playing with Portals YouTube channel. You can make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see y'all later, and let me know what you think below. All right, bye.